NBA Fantasy Salary Cap Edition, Week 13 Update. Everything you need to know midway through Week 13 of NBA Fantasy Salary Cap Edition. Hey NBA Fantasy fans. Welcome back to the channel where we break down all the latest updates, stats, and tips to help you dominate your fantasy leagues. It's Week 13 of the NBA season, and we've got a lot to talk about, from rising stars to struggling teams and key transaction tips. So let's dive right in. Week 13 is officially underway, and as always, there's been plenty of movement in the NBA Fantasy Salary Cap Edition. Some players are heating up while others are cooling down. In this video, we're taking a closer look at what's been going down so far, and what you need to know to make smart moves for your fantasy team. Let's kick things off with the Boston Celtics. At 28-12, they're still one of the top teams in the league, but things have been rocky recently. The defending champs hit a low point this week, falling to the Toronto Raptors 110-97. Yes, the Raptors, who are sitting at just 10-31 this season. And just a few days before, they barely escaped the New Orleans Pelicans in a nail-biting 120-119 win. Now, it wasn't long ago that the Celtics were sitting pretty at 16-3 and looking like they might claim the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. But with a recent 7-7 stretch over their last 14 games, the Cleveland Cavaliers have pulled away with a commanding 6.5-game lead and the best record in the league. As for fantasy owners, the Celtics' drop-off is noticeable. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Boston's top 2 fantasy assets, have seen their fantasy points per game dip. Tatum was averaging 49.5 fantasy points through the first 26 games, but now he's down to 49.2 over the last 14. Brown, similarly, has seen a small drop from 39.9 to 38.5. And it doesn't stop there. Derek White, who was averaging 35.4 fantasy points per game, has seen that drop to just 27.1 in his last 14. Peyton Pritchard, who was making waves as a 6th Man of the Year candidate, has also fallen off, going from 27.8 FPPG to 23.0 since December. On the flip side, let's talk about some of the top performances so far this week. And as always, we have to start with the big man himself, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis had an absolute monster game this week, racking up 68.7 fantasy points in the Milwaukee Bucks win over the Sacramento Kings. The Greek Freak went off for 33 points, 11 rebounds, and 13 assists, his 5th triple-double of the season, and his 13th performance of 60-plus fantasy points. If you have Giannis, you're loving life right now. Not far behind, Anthony Edwards also delivered a huge fantasy performance with 63.7 fantasy points in the Minnesota Timberwolves win over the Washington Wizards. Edwards dropped 41 points, grabbed 6 rebounds, and dished out 7 assists. It was his first game over 60 fantasy points this season. And it came against a Wizards team that has been struggling defensively, and we can't forget about Victor Wembanyama. The San Antonio Spurs rookie sensation put up 59.4 fantasy points in a tough loss to the Memphis Grizzlies. Despite only scoring 13 points, he grabbed 12 rebounds and blocked 8 shots. It was another dominant performance from the future star, and he's now hit 50 or more fantasy points in 67% of his games this season. Now, let's talk about some transaction tips to help you make the right moves this week. And we're going to start with the Chicago Bulls. Chicago's had a roller coaster season, but they're currently hanging on to the final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. At 18-23, the Bulls have some winnable matchups ahead, including games against the Charlotte Hornets and Portland Trail Blazers this week. So, if you're looking for players to add, look no further than Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine. Vucevic has been on fire, scoring 35-plus fantasy points in 14 of his last 16 games. LaVine has been similarly hot, hitting that mark in 8 straight games. They're both priced a bit higher, with Vucevic at $13.9 million and LaVine at $12.4 million, but they could be worth the investment, especially against these weaker opponents. So there you have it. That's everything you need to know for Week 13 of the NBA Fantasy Salary Cap Edition. We've seen some surprises, big performances, and plenty of shifting fantasy values. Keep an eye on those Celtics for possible buy low opportunities, and if you're looking to upgrade your team, Giannis and Edwards are your stars this week. Thanks for tuning in, and if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any future updates. Good luck with your fantasy lineup, and we'll see you next time.